everybody, this is a super easy chocolate cake recipe. You will need 240 grams of cake flour, 100 grams of cocoa powder. You will also need 400 grams of custard sugar, 5 ml of bicarbonate of soda, and 5 ml of baking powder. You'll also need a pinch of salt. I use Himalayan salt. You will need oil, 125 ml of oil, 2 large eggs, free range eggs. You'll also need 300 ml of full cream milk. You will need 10 ml of vanilla essence, and then you will need 250 ml, which is 1 cup of boiling water. The first thing that you need to do is really mix in your dry ingredients, so your flour, your cocoa powder, sugar, etc. This is really an easy recipe to make. It's super easy. You don't need to use blenders, as I said. It's a flop proof recipe. It is uber easy to make, and it's really great for beginner bakers or those bakers that really don't want to use a lot of time actually mixing up and using a lot of time making a cake. And everybody loves this. My friends love this. I love it. So the reason why I'm doing this really is because most of my friends have asked me to give them baking lessons so that they can actually bake for their families and friends. So I personally love this cake recipe, and it is moist, rich, and very chocolatey. So once you've mixed your dry ingredients, you will whisk your eggs. I always like to whisk the eggs on the side so that they're nice and mixed before adding them to the mixture. So you will whisk them and then make a little bit of a well in the middle, if you can, of the dry ingredients using a hand whisk. And so you add milk into the dry mix. You add your eggs and make sure that you add everything in there, and then you add your oil. I've used sunflower oil. You can use canola oil as well. And you just mix with your hand whisk. It's really easy. You don't have to use a lot of manpower. You add your boiling water. It needs to be quite hot, your water. And then you just mix everything through until it's mixed. And then I usually just add my vanilla essence at the end, and that gives a nice flavor. You can also use vanilla extract if you want more flavor. And then you just mix that, and you can see it makes a really runny batter, and at the end it just gives you this beautiful moist cake. Mix. There's no really over mixing here. And then you're going to bake this into a preheated 180 degrees Celsius oven, and it's very important that you preheat your oven before you actually bake your cake so that the temperature is right. Before you add that into the oven, you use 15 centimeter cake tins. So this will make 2 of those, and you line that. So I've lined it with baking paper at the bottom, and just spread some butter along the sides and the bottom of the cake tin. And you add your batter into that. Make sure that the batter does not fill up to the top of the baking tray or baking tin. Otherwise your cake might actually bake over, because it does go quite high up onto your baking tray. And then you bake that, as I said, preheated 180 degrees Celsius oven that you actually bake this in. And then after baking, really you have to cool your cake. So 180, as I said, bake it. After baking, it bakes for about 30 to 45 minutes really. I took about 45 minutes for this, until a tester or cake tester comes out clean, or even a skewer. And then to take that out, you actually run a knife along the sides of the pen so that it loosens up a bit. You don't worry about the bottom because you've lined your bottom. You use a cake cooler to cool your cake. It's very important that you actually cool your cake. So that's the cooler or cake rack. You just put it on top of your pan so that you can turn it upside down and your cake can cool. It's very important that your cake cools completely. Otherwise, really, there's like pockets of moisture that you don't want on that cake. You still want it to be nice and fluffy and not stodgy. So you loosen your cake out. And as you can see, it really looks lovely and baked and it's not burnt. You might have a crack or two at the top. I usually just cut that off to make sure that the cake is not it is nice and level. So you only do that though once your cake has cooled. So you wait a few minutes, about 20 minutes, until your cake is nice and cooled, and you cut the top off so that it's nice and level when you ice it. And as you can see, it is rich, moist, and decadent. And then what I do, I cut this layer in half, and then the other cake that comes out of the batter as well, I cut in half so that you can actually have like 4 layers of cake at the end. And that is really